Hello, my lighthearted friends. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jonathan Reitz, guest host for today on Lighthearted Leadership. I'm an old friend of Lizette's, a colleague, a challenger in some ways, as she challenges me. And that's kind of the goal for today's episode of Lighthearted Leadership. Celebrating with Dr. Lizette Warner. Lizette, welcome to Lighthearted Leadership.
And the crowd goes wild. Hey, Jonathan, thanks. Thanks for having me on my show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. You're welcome for being welcomed on your own show. So the book, Power, Poise, and Presence, what's the connection between the theme of the book and this show?
Wow. That is a good question. You know, I've been asking myself that sort of same question sort of pop up in my mind, because I have one of the things that changed about me when I started doing this show, taking sort of that lighthearted twist to leadership, because there's so many things pulling us down in the world. I wanted people to have a way to be uplifted. One of the things that has made a huge impact in my own, I'm a coach, like you're a coach as well, Jonathan, but one of the things that made a significant shift in my coaching mindset, and I think that leveled up my coaching game, was when I started showing up lighthearted. And that didn't mean like I'm poking fun and making jokes. It just meant I took myself less seriously. And I gave myself sort of that opportunity to fail. And the tie-in to the book is somewhat the same, because as I was showing up that way with my coaching clients, they were being vulnerable and sharing with me. And I started finding out that they had some very serious, like we talk about some very serious topics in coaching, things that get to the heart of who people are. And I wanted to be able to help others. And so the tie-in really is sort of the subterfuge of the book, where I genuinely want to help other people. And I felt like the best way to do it was to take all the thoughts and my lighthearted wisdom, as I've been through tough stuff in life, but I took all that, wrote it down on the book, and just to show people that you can get through it. Like lighthearted doesn't necessarily mean that you're joking and having fun all the time, but it's an approach and a sort of a way of life. Yeah.
So how does being lighthearted change your perspective in a world where it's really easy to get bogged down by all the stuff?
Man, excellent question. The way, I guess, lighthearted, it's football season. Your team's winning, your team's losing, and the next day can be an absolute disaster for people. Elections. Sometimes people don't even talk about who, and I know this, like sometimes people don't even talk about who they're voting for, any of that stuff, because it's polarizing. So I've been in I'm sure you've been in this situation, been in coaching conversations where that is the topic, because this is the space where people can be vulnerable. And that entire lightheartedness allows me to sort of let go, to not be so tied into my thoughts that I'm right, that you're wrong. It lets me put you sort of front and center and listen to you without thinking, okay, I got to be wrong in order for you to be right. No, I could listen to you. Right. And so it's, I don't know, it's just made a huge difference in my life, because I remember back when I did get keyed up when my whoever didn't win at the election. And this past year, the funniest thing happened. So I went to the polling booth and I voted and walked away, went to my next meetings, whatever. Next day came and I'm, doing my stuff. And that was when I realized, oh, I have no idea who won. Not a clue. And I felt like I made it. I felt like that was a point where I was like, I had been struggling for years and years and years to go vote and then not care. And not, I don't mean like, I don't care about who wins, but it doesn't affect who I am if so-and-so wins or if so-and-so wins. I was able to let it go. And it was just such mental clarity. I felt good about myself. And then later I found out, oh, okay, that's who won. Like, but I think many people struggle with that. It's an interesting topic. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I love how you connect the mindset of being lighthearted with the ability to connect to people in a way that is just getting rarer and rarer in the world today. Yeah. How much does that inform the content of the book?
Yeah, the whole, so I do share with myself, in the book. And I think if you read through some of the book, I share, the tough stuff that I've been through in life, but I also share the upsides of it and what I've learned. And I think that piece is what readers can resonate with. So I start out the book with a fire that I was in, that I started. It's a horrible sort of tragedies. Nobody died, thank goodness. Okay, spoiler alert, but it's in the first couple pages, folks. So, but no one died, but yet it was a heavy event, and that sort of led to all of these other insights that I share in the book to help people be better leaders, and sort of how to, if lightheartedness is a muscle, like you can break it down and figure out how to lean into it. Cause I share a model with people about biomarkers because my background is healthcare. And so I think that's sort of like the interesting twist on this book is I take my healthcare background and I fuse it with everything that I learned in leadership and just put it out there for folks. So it's got that sort of, that's, I guess, the tie-in. Yeah.
Okay. I love where you're going here. And in the book, there's lots of examples from your own story, lots of connections to how you became who you are today.
Yeah.
Now, podcast listeners have a sense of who Dr. Lizette Warner is, but flesh that picture out a little bit more. Tell me a little bit about who you are that's more than meets the ear when you're listening to yourself on a podcast, when someone's hearing you on a podcast.
Yeah, it's funny.
What makes you you?
My husband's been trying to figure that question out for years. I don't know if he's got that worked out yet. So I'm the youngest of four, and I grew up, it was really funny. I grew up speaking in Chicago. I grew up speaking Spanish, and I got made fun of because I was the youngest. So I got made fun of because you'll notice I don't have an accent, but I spoke solely Spanish because my mom also spoke Spanish, and she was a homemaker. So she stayed home with us. And I think maybe she worked at some stage, but, so I grew up speaking Spanish, but my older siblings who were all way older than I was. So I was like the oopsie baby. And so I ended up speaking Spanish until my siblings started making fun of me. So I ditched Spanish and I tuned into Sesame Street because that's where everybody learns English. I tuned into Sesame Street. I went to school. I stopped speaking Spanish because they were making fun of me. And so I started speaking English, and I spoke better than any of them. Right. So that's maybe sort of a little bit about my background or upbringing in Chicago. But the other thing that I sort of discovered along the way, there's all these things you don't know about yourself. And I didn't know that I was really bright. And some of that I sort of knew, but I didn't know like how bright. I remember coming home one day, and this was in high school. I remember coming home one day with my math problems, and I couldn't figure out the solution. And so who did I talk to? My mom. There was nobody else in the house because everybody was already gone. And it was, I don't know, calculus or something. And she just listened. And as I talked about my problem, and then I was like, oh, I got it. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I didn't realize till after I graduated college, because your parents don't necessarily share some of this information, but I didn't find out till later that she had graduated third grade. She went to work after third grade because her father was killed. And they had a lot of kids in the family. She lived in Mexico at the time, so she had to go to work to earn money to feed the family and her younger siblings in third grade. And when I was in college, I couldn't even wrap my mind around that. Like, what was I doing in third grade? And I come back to that, hey, Mom, I've got this problem, and realized that, the insightful look that she was giving me when I was talking to her wasn't insightful. She was perplexed. She had no clue how to help me, but she listened. And I come back to that because it ties back into what I do as a coach and how the whole book transpired. It transpired from me listening to other people who are having problems. And I didn't just listen, right? I joined with them. I partnered with them. But that's maybe a little bit more about me, of my upbringing and kind of who I am. And from there, I got married, met my husband, went to school. And part of my challenge was I didn't know what to study because my family, no one in my family had really gone to college. My older brother had gone. But then I went to school and I looked at my mentors and I asked them, what's the hardest? What's sort of the hardest subject? And so they came back, electrical engineering. Okay, I'll do that. So I went to school, that was why I did electrical engineering. That was I had no idea what it was about, but I went and did it because it was the hardest. And I'm like, okay, the people are telling me I'm smart. Maybe that's what I should do. And then I went to work. And I always had in this back of my mind of, I want to get my Ph.D. And mind you, Jonathan, no idea what a Ph.D. was, other than it was the thing. It was the thing all these smart people do, and people who write books do, and people who are changing the world. And so I want to be a person who changes the world. So what do I have to do for that? Well, in the meantime, my husband's going to school. I'm working. We have our first child. He finishes school. I have my second child and he's going to work. And I said, okay, now, honey, this is the time where we swap. Remember we said I always wanted to go back to school. So he's like, okay. So I got accepted. Well, first I applied to get my PhD. I was trying to figure out, do I want to do medicine? Do I want to do science? And I really wanted to apply all of my technical expertise, my system expertise, because I had really gone as high as you could go in the whole where I was. If there was a technical topic that you needed hashed out, you want to figure out how the phone works or why it's not working or why the mobile network's down, you came to me. So I wanted to apply that knowledge into healthcare because I figured if I can do that, I can really help people. So I applied to the Mayo Clinic, and lo and behold, you know where the Mayo Clinic is. It's in Minnesota. I live in Texas. Mm-hmm. It's a different climate, right? But I was like, yeah, I've lived in Chicago before, so this could be fun. They accepted me. I'm like, are you guys crazy? What, did you read my back? Okay, fine. So I go to the clinic and started going to school with kids, with a husband, having quit my full-time job. Like, who does? I never realized people don't do that. Like, that's not the traditional way to do it. But it was my dream to go and do that. So that's what I went and did. And then a few years into it, long answer to your short question, but my husband lost his job. That story's in the book. That story helped shape me in who I am and in becoming who I am, which was then I went to help people and became a coach, worked in healthcare. And now I take that knowledge, fuse it with all my leadership knowledge because from there, the rest of the story, it's in the book, folks. So grab the book. But it's not just a story of me. It's a story of the leadership principles that emerged from each of these sort of mishaps, from all of the wisdom that I found myself or surrounded myself with, I guess.
You know what I love about the story that you just told about yourself, the picture you just painted of yourself, is the beautiful balance of action, discovery, saying, hey, I didn't know people didn't just quit their job and go back to school, and a self-reflection component that says, all right, now that I'm doing this, let's figure out how to make this work. Let's figure out how to make this move forward. What did you learn about yourself as you went through the process of writing the book?
Yeah, that whole, you picked up on something super important to me and super connected to who I am, which is that whole reflection piece. The whole book emerged because I do this self-reflection practice after every single coaching call that I have. And that essentially is how the book came to be. But some of the things that I discovered, I set out to help people, which is why I wrote about power, poise, and presence, was to help people get into leadership roles, to stay in leadership roles. And what I ended up discovering was while I set out to teach people about power, poise, and presence, I ended up discovering it. I didn't realize it had deeper layers. It had deeper facets to it. So that's something that I ended up discovering about myself and my own ability to be vulnerable. Now, my clients will tell you that's one thing they love about me, that the coaching isn't about me. It's about my clients, but I can share very vulnerably with them. And it's something that sticks out in their minds when they work with me. The other piece of that is that I've discovered a deeper depth to vulnerability that I didn't even realize existed. So I think it just gets deeper and deeper, and you get more wisdom going deeper and deeper. So I think that's something that I realized is I set out to write a book about power, poise, and presence thinking, okay, I've got something to share with people. And as I'm writing it, I'm adding or taking things away from the book as I'm learning more, because I want to share that with others.
I have often said in my three books, all three have taught me a consistent theme, and that is I am student number one as I write the book. The things I learn in the process always surprise me. And then it's fascinating to me. Now, I hope you keep a list of these, and perhaps this will come back up in a future podcast episode. I hope you keep a list of the things you learn, because it's really fun to be able to talk to people who read your work about when they realize very similar things moving forward. So like I say, I hope you're keeping a list of the things that you're reflecting on. Now, I'd be curious to know, leadership topic, words like poise and presence. This is not the only book out there along a topic like this. What makes your book different from some of the other titles on the leadership shelf, specifically around poise and presence and power and topics like that?
Yeah. What makes it different is it's not only a story, it is strategic and it's tactical. I am so about helping people get tactical pieces of wisdom that they can put forward in their life. And I think the other thing that is part of why I wrote this book is there wasn't another book like this. As I told you earlier, I'm in healthcare. So I've got a background in healthcare. I've got a background in technology as well, in the tech field. And I've also got a background because of my coaching education and all the work that I do in leadership development. It was a fusing of both of those. And that's not something that I've seen written to help tactically people get into levels of, I want to get into the director role, or I want to get into the VP role, or I want to get to the CEO role, or I want to help people get there, or I want to hit that next level with sort of the healthcare twist that I take on biomarkers, and in showing people what are biomarkers and that you can control them. They're things that you have at your disposal. And I know now I've thrown in a new word, which is biomarkers, but they're those, you know what these are, Jonathan. They're these emotions, the sensations that form power. In my book, Power, there are similar books on the topic, tuning into sort of bodily wisdom, but I don't just leave it there. I think the other thing, aside from just tuning into the biomarkers, is I also give tactical tools, listening tools, poise tools, how to teach your children to be resilient, how you as a parent can be resilient. Because, oh my gosh, our job as parents is to rescue and protect. And sometimes we get into this one-track mind of, oh, got to rescue, got to protect. It is super uncomfortable. Jonathan, you know this. It is super uncomfortable to watch someone you know and love struggle and fail. But if you don't, they may not learn the wisdom. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah,
I know it wound all over the place with it, but
well, I want to go somewhere specific based on what you just said. This idea of biomarkers, where there's bodily indications that two scenarios come up. There are those moments where that sense in your body matches what your intellect is telling you. And then there's that moment where the wisdom in your body says something different than what your brain is saying. How do you handle those two scenarios?
Yeah. And I think the latter is probably the one that most people struggle with, right? Your body is telling you something, but in your mind, well, I have to do this. I have to do this. And many times.
So which one is right? How do you decide?
Yeah. That is an excellent question. Because I just listened to there's another coach I was talking to over the weekend who teaches, we're on the same street, but she teaches, your thoughts, pay attention to your thoughts. And I totally agree with that, right? Pay attention to your thoughts, because they become it's what goes on in your mind. It's what you end up doing. It's how you end up acting. But the wisdom in your body, in your gut, they're indications as well. So I don't know if it's a sense of, we got to fight with one or the other, but I think you got to bring it to your personal leadership table. I think that's the thing that you have to do with them. And that will tell you, okay, where do I go with this? So, but the thing that many of us don't do is we don't bring it up to our personal leadership table. We go, okay, head's right. I got to go. I got to go. I got to go. And meanwhile, your body's telling you, stop, stop, stop. Like, this is not you. This is not who you are. No, this is my brain is saying, I got to go. I got to go. And we never bring it up to the leadership table. And I think that is the difference of what I'm bringing forward in this book, is bring it up to the leadership table. Let's have that dialogue. What's going on in the gut? What's it? Okay. What are you telling me? And where's that coming from? Is it fear because I've gone through this again? Is it, I'm not being authentic to who I am, and so I'm shutting down? Or is this nervous energy and I'm kind of, maybe it's excitement, I don't know. But I think that's the key, is I don't know that there's one wins out against the other, but I think we definitely need to bring it to the conversation and just have that pause and go, okay, what's going on here?
I love that. I absolutely love that, because on any given Tuesday, I might have excitement one minute, I might have dread the other minute, I might have all these very valuable responses going on, where my head is at odds with some of them, in complete alignment with others of them. And that's just a part of being human. Yeah. But if I don't have a place to have that conversation, the likelihood that I'm going to navigate that well drops dramatically. So I really appreciate that advice. Now, I've got two final questions for you, and then we'll do a takeaway. Now, this entire idea of, biomarkers, you might call it somatic coaching, or the idea of the extended mind.
Mhm.
There's a whole controversy around this kind of learning about how well researched it is and how well cited these kinds of topics can be. How did you handle that discussion as you wrote?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I will share with you this, Jonathan. The worst part of writing, the piece where I almost gave up and this book would have never seen the light of day, was when it came to citations. So I had a number of citations. So I went, and anytime I wrote something, I had to go, I got to cite it. Where is this? So you mentioned the extended mind. It's behind me, right? It's it's chock full of good research. So I went and I read the first manuscripts that were in there. And then I dove deeper and grabbed all of these citations. So folks, if you've never written a book and you go and you write a nonfiction, citations. Oh my gosh. Hated writing citations. The worst part of writing this stupid book was the citations, but it's important. So all of the citations are in my book, and I painstakingly went through each of those citations so it matched the styling that needed to be matched, because there's so much out there, whether it's a blog. And if it's a blog, then there's a lot of information out there, folks, and not all of it is cited very well. So if I found something on a blog, that's not good enough for me. I've got to find where is a scientific article that tells me about this. And so I would go and dive down. No, I can't corroborate what they just put on their blog. Maybe it's right. I don't know. But I can't find the scientific publication and they didn't cite it. So one of the things that I've done on my blog was I put the citations of, hey, this is where I got, and it's granted, it's not cited like it would be in a book, but it's there, right? I try and link to it. And that's something that's super important to me, because I've got my scientific background. I went through the Mayo Clinic. I had to write the stupid thesis. I have to write peer-reviewed publications in my current frame of work. So I took that to heart as I wrote the book. And while it's sort of a boring-ish topic, it's super important, folks, that the information that you're getting, that it's vetted, that you can cite where it came from. Go read the article. So all of that, it's in the book, right? So in painstakingly in the book, and I somehow made it past that seventh circle of hell out of citations to get the book out there. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing up that nightmare.
Well, I'm sorry to take you back there, Lizette, but I've learned two things about you in this conversation where you and I are identical, and that is undergraduate in electrical engineering, which if I knew that, I forgot, because I also was there, because I put that time out of my mind. And the unique, I'm going to politely say, joy of writing citations for a published book almost swore me off from ever writing another one after my second book. So yeah, I feel your pain. Let's not camp there. Let's go somewhere else though, and say, what's your favorite part? What was the best part of getting this down on paper?
I think the best part was pulling my family, and I don't mean literally pulling my family into the book, but remembering the lessons that we taught our kids, because I've got a section in the book about raising powerfully poised and present children, creating a powerfully poised and present culture. Writing about my kids in the book, because they're the light of my life, right? And it always brings a smile to my face, and remembering those lessons that we taught them. There's a grow stronger lesson that's in the book. And there's a grow stronger lesson where my kids, then my son taught my daughter, and remembering those lessons of, my son, I'll just give you the brief highlight version, but my son was we were in Minnesota. He was, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, carrying all these groceries to the house. And they were, I don't know how much milk my husband bought, but the bags were heavy. And so my son's like carrying them. And he's like, help me. And so my husband helps him grow stronger. And I take that as a lesson in the book to show people, he had a choice. He didn't have to carry the bags in. He could have dropped them. He could have said, okay, I'm going to carry one, or he could have heaved them up on his shoulder and kept walking, which is what he did, right? He grew stronger. So that's my call to action for folks. Grab the book, grow stronger, teach other people how to grow stronger, teach your kids to grow stronger. And so that's kind of where I go with that is that was my joy, was putting those memories down in the book as well, and knowing that they can help others grow stronger.
I want to affirm that 100%. I've read the book. It is 100% actionable.
Oh, thank you,
And
Jonathan.
one of the things that I really appreciate about a nonfiction book is, as I put it down, I don't read it all. I rarely read a book in one sitting. So it's pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Every time when I put the book down, is there some action I can take based on the ground I've just covered? And in your book, every single time, there was something I could go and try out. I could go and do differently. I could go and take action with. And that to me is the sign of the kind of book that opens up possibilities for your readers. So congratulations on that. Great work. Great work
Thank
on
you.
it. I do have a very specific, although not very serious, book-related question.
Shoot.
Which is, what is a Mastweiler?
Oh, it's a big fat dog that ejects gaseous substances from his hindquarters every once in a while. Don't know how other pleasant way to put that.
Well, hey, see, this is why you download Lighthearted Leadership. It's for moments like this. So just let me thank you again for downloading this particular podcast, because I'm sure you're feeling the we'll call it gratitude right about now. Now, so it's part Rottweiler and part what?
Exactly. So he's part Rottweiler and he's part Mastiff.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So this is an enormous dog.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds. Yeah.
and probably contributing 30% of the world's methane problem?
Probably. Yeah.
35?
Yeah, that's a good estimation. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Lizette Warner, I do want to say thank you very much for inviting me into your domain to be a part of the podcast today. Out of curiosity, what's your big takeaway from today's conversation?
Jonathan, we've had so much fun. I think my biggest takeaway is I need to write more. I need to, we affirm. So one of my resolutions this year was to write a recap. And by recap, I mean like one word of the day at the end of the day. And you affirm that here. So I think that was a realization for me that, yeah, you're on the right track. Keep reflecting even on a daily basis. I'm going to keep doing the reflection that I do in my coaching, but I think on a daily basis, that's an actionable takeaway, I think, for me. How about you, Jonathan?
Excellent.
What did you learn? What are you taking away from our conversation today?
Interestingly enough, Lizette, mine is similar to yours.
Okay.
And that is the reflective habit that is relatively new for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from a German family. I am by far the most verbal member of my family. It's not even close. And engineer, my father was a physicist, for goodness sake. So, reflection does not come natural. But so I've been building this reflective habit, and this conversation has really challenged me to level that up a bit. My primary reflection is in written form. And then as a working professional coach, I have a coaching supervisor where I do some reflective work with. But what this has reminded me of is the value of talking to a friend or a peer or someone, someone who sees the world similarly but not identically. And that's really the big balance for me is that, I made a couple of discoveries about my own reflection hearing your story. Thinking about, hey, you grew up speaking Spanish, but then you chose to go a different direction. There've been some moments for me like that as well, where I had a habit, but I went somewhere else. And I think that really intentional reflective practice, both in writing, in thought, in conversation with for professional reasons and for other reasons, I think that's something I needed to double down on. So thank you for that.
Awesome. My pleasure. And that, my lighthearted friends, is a wrap for today's show. Give us a like or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I want to thank you, and I want to thank Jonathan for guest hosting on today's show. Go grab the book, leave us a review, share it with your friends. It'll help me have a great book launch, and it'll help you create a world full of power, poise, and presence. Thank you, my lighthearted friends, for joining me on today's show. Join me next time where we take another peek into lighthearted wisdom for your life. You have been listening to Lighthearted Leadership with Lizette.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if I will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.